right. This is Engage New York, Module 2, Lesson 14, Concept Development. So let's go ahead and remember our objective for today. Our objective is to use fraction and decimal multiplication. So we're using multiplication to express equivalent measurements. So we're going to get the equal measurement from days to weeks. It's just another way of writing it, right? So I want us to get used to following an order, following a strategy, always writing something the same way. If you get in a rhythm, it's easy to be able to bust these problems out. But you have to get into a rhythm, and you have to get into like step 1, this is what I do. Step 2, step 3, right? If you get into that habit, these problems become very easy. So 14 days. So we're going to solve on the right side of the problem. So we're always going to write 14 times, because remember we're using multiplication, times 1 day. So we're basically taking this and we're moving it over here, okay? So this is step 1, 14 times 1 day, step 1. Step 2, we're now going to take the 1 day and replace it. So 14 times 1 day of a week is how much? It's 1/7 of a week, right? We just looked at that in our application problem. So here are the two factors up here, a day and 14 days versus 14 days, and we're taking it to a week. Now, what fraction of a week is 1 day? So our next question is, what fraction of 1 week is 1 day? Step 2, we're going to multiply 14 times 1/7 equals 14/7. Now, what's apostrophe 14 times 1/7 of a week? So if you had 14 1/7, what would you have? If you had 14 1/7, 14 plus 14 plus 14. If you had 14, 1/7. If you had 14 1/7, you would have how many weeks? You'd have 2 weeks. So if you had 1/7 7 times, and you had 1/7 another 7 times, right? So this would be 1 week. This would be 2 weeks, right? So now let's go on to 24 feet equals how many yards? Well, let's start off with what we know. We know there are 3 feet equals 1 yard, right? And we know there are 12 inches in 1 foot, right? All right, so just starting with what we already know. So step 1, we're going to always write this first step every single time. We're going to go 24 times 1 foot. So we're taking this and we're moving it over here. We're making a copy of it and we're putting the copy of it over here. Now we're going to go 24 times. So now we need to go back in and change this to yards. Now, if I have 1, so remember, if I have 1 foot, it takes 1 foot plus 2 feet plus 3 feet to equal a yard. So 1 foot, right, is 1 foot is equal to 1/3 of a yard. 1 foot is equal to 1/3 of the yard. Yes? Okay, so we're going to change that to 1/3 of a yard. Now, we're going to go 24 times 1/3. 24 times 1/3, it gives us 24 over 3. We have 24 1/3. So if you break that down into 24 times you have 1/3. You have 1/3 24 times. Right? You end up with 8 yards. Are you guys doing okay? So let's talk about what we know about quarts and gallons. So in 2 quarts, 1 quart, it takes 4 quarts to equal 1 gallon, right? All right. So if I have half, I only have 2 quarts, I have half the amount to make 1 gallon. So if I start thinking this through, so remember, step 1, we're always going to make a copy of this, 2 quarts times, 2 times 1 quart, 2 times 1 quart. Now, we're going to change. We're going to go, 2 quarts. Okay, 2 quarts times, now remember, if this, it takes 1 quart, 1 quart, 2 quarts, 3 quarts, 4 quarts to make 1 gallon. So I'm going to, and if I have 1, I'm going to put 1/4 of a gallon. So 2 times 1/4 equals 2/4, which equals 1/2 of a gallon, right? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. Now what if I changed it to 24 quarts? Let's take it up a notch. Let's go 24 quarts is equal to blank gallons. So step 1, what are we going to do? All right, so you guys knew to make a copy. You knew to add 1/4 of a gallon, and you multiplied and ended up with 6 gallons. All right, now let's go from grams to kilograms. We know there are 1,000 grams in 1 kilogram. All right, so let's step 1 it. Let's go 4,500 grams. 4,500 times 1 gram. Now, we know a fraction. What is the fraction? What is 1 gram of the kilogram? What is 1 gram of a kilogram? Remember, so it's 1 of 1,000, or if I'm going to write it in decimal form, it's 0.001, right, of a kilogram. All right, so let's put that in. So 4,500 times 0.001 of a kilogram. Now, what do we remember from yesterday when we were multiplying by a decimal? Remember, we were multiplying when we said it's different. Remember when we're just multiplying by 10, 100, and 1,000, our decimal point just heads this direction. But remember yesterday we talked about a fraction. A decimal is a fraction, and a fraction is division, right? So instead of my decimal moving this direction, how is it going to go this time? Gonna come this way, right? So it's going to come 3 times. It's going to move once, twice, 3 times. So we end up with 4.5 of kilograms. And remember, when we're going from smaller units to bigger units, our number gets smaller. So when I'm going from smaller units to larger units, the number gets smaller. And if I'm going from bigger to smaller, the number gets grandiose, gets very big. All right, so 578 milliliters. So we're going from milliliters over here all the way over here to liters. Remember, so we're going from smaller unit to larger unit. And what we just wrote down is when you're going from smaller units to larger units, your number gets smaller. So we know our number is going to get smaller. So step 1, we make a copy. Very good. 578 times 1 milliliter. All right. Then step 2, we're going to put the liters in, and we know that they're mil. How many milliliters do you think are in 1 liter? Go. Now, so if we know there are 1,000 milliliters in 1 liter, we're now going to go 578 times. We're going to put this in decimal form. Let's put this in decimal form because we know how to multiply by decimal numbers. So 0.001 kilograms. Or are we on grams? Oh, we're on liters. Sorry. Oh. Milliliters. Sorry. Excuse me. All right. So now we know that decimal is a fraction and fraction is division, right? So remember, we're going to take our decimal now and we're going to move it 3 times. So we're going to end up with 0.578 liters. So we have to take it, move it 1, 2, 3, because a decimal is a fraction and a fraction is division. And when we're using division, our decimal is going to go the opposite way. Okay? All right. Last but not least, a container holds 16 cups of juice. So all the way up to 16. So here's 1, here's 16. So this is kind of like a tape diagram. Here's 1 cup, all the way to 16 cups. All right, so a container holds 16 cups of juice. Convert the capacity to pints. Remember, 2 cups go into 1 pint. So you could have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, right?
Yep.
You could have 16 cups. And if there are 2 cups in 1 pint, do you see what I'm doing here? This could be a strategy. How many pints? If there are 2 cups in 1 pint, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pints. Yeah? Or we could, let's go back to our equation. Let's go 16 cups, and we're trying to find out how many pints. So we're taking it back to what we've been learning. Now we can go 16 times 1 cup, and then we know that 1 cup is half of a pint. So 16 times a half of a pint. I'm going to bring it up over here. So 16 times 1/2, which gives us 16 halves, which gives us 8 pints. So I showed you using a tape diagram, and I showed you using like an algebraic equation. This is what you need to really start practicing with. Really get good at taking it to the next thing, and keep looking back at the examples. Always look back at your example, so you go, okay, now I know what comes next. Now I know what comes next, okay? All right. And last but not least, our very last one is a truck. Weighs 1,675,280 grams. Now, remember, grams are really small. Grams, think of a sugar cube. So it would take over 1 million sugar cubes to weigh that truck. Okay? It's a lot of sugar cubes. Okay, now we're going to convert weight to kilograms. So now we're going from grams, and we have to go to kilograms. So remember, when we're going from smaller units to larger units, the number gets smaller, right? See, we are always coming back to what we've already learned. 1,675,280 grams. If you're not writing this down, you're doing yourself a huge disservice. You're going from grams to kilograms. So I think I'm going to have to move my equal sign way over here. 1,675,280 times 1 gram. Now, how many grams are in 1 kilogram? How many?
1,000.
Thank you very much. There are 1,000. So it's 1/1000th. And what does that look like in a decimal? 0.001, right?
Yeah.
And we know how to multiply using that. So let's go ahead and go 1,675,280 times 0.001 kilograms. So now we're going to, because a decimal is a fraction and a fraction is division, we're going to take our decimal and we're going to move it 3 times. 1, 2, 3. And we're going to end up with 165.28. And you could put the 0, but you don't have to, because the 0 means 0.
Yes.
All right, so kilograms. Okay? Okay, so you're using your concept development to help you go back and look at your examples. Look how you did it. All right. So we're converting days to weeks, quarts to gallons, centimeters to meters, meters to kilometers. Remember that little thing when you have when you're going from smaller units to larger units, your number gets smaller. Okay, so that is problem set. You're doing it on both sides, and that is it. You are free to use your GallonBot and to help you. All right, you will do fabulous. Good.